Try it again. Islam, family.
Islam.
All praises are due to Allah. The great meeting is on at the Moorish Science Temple of America, subordinate temple number 19. Welcome to you all. We begin our meeting as always with the Moorish American prayer. I ask that this time everyone please rise and face the east, which is right in front of you. All Moorish Americans, please place your feet at a 45-degree angle, 2 fingers closed on the right, 5 fingers open on the left. Invoking the presence of the sacred Elohim, who created everything that was, is, and evermore shall be. And to all of our visitors, please stand in a position that is comfortable for you in acknowledging our Creator. Please repeat after me. Islam.
Islam.
Allah.
Allah.
The Father of the universe.
The Father of the universe.
The Father of love.
The Father of love.
Truth.
Truth.
Peace.
Peace.
Freedom.
Freedom.
And justice.
And justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
My guide.
And my salvation.
And my salvation.
By night.
By night.
And by day.
And by day.
Through His holy prophet.
Through His holy prophet.
Through Ali.
Through Ali.
Ameen.
Ameen.
Please remain standing. At this time, I will be reading Moorish Science Temple of America, Divine Constitution and Bylaws. We ask at this time that all Moorish Americans, while hearing the words of our prophet, please stand with your right hand over your heart. Islam.
Islam.
Salvation, Allah, unity, the Moorish Science Temple of America, the Divine Constitution and Bylaws. Act 1. The Grand Sheik and the Chairman of the Moorish Science Temple of America is empowered to make law and enforce laws with the assistance of the Prophet and the Grand Body of the Moorish Science Temple of America. The Assistant Grand Sheik is to assist the Grand Sheik in all affairs if he lives according to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and is known before the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Islam?
Islam.
Act 2. All meetings are to be opened and closed promptly according to the Circle 7 in love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Friday is our holy day of rest because on a Friday the first man was formed in flesh, and on a Friday the first man departed out of flesh and ascended into his Father God Allah. For that cause, Friday is the holy day for all Muslims all over the world. Islam?
Islam.
Act 3. Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice must be proclaimed and practiced by all members of the Moorish Science Temple of America. No member is to put in danger or accuse falsely his brother or sister on any occasion, and all that may harm his brother or sister, because Allah is love. Islam?
Islam.
Act 4. All members must preserve these holy and divine laws, and all members must obey the laws of the said government, because by being a Moorish American, you are part and parcel of the government and must live the life accordingly. Islam?
Islam.
Act 5. This organization of the Moorish Science Temple of America is not to cause any confusion or to overthrow the laws and constitution of the said government, but to obey hereby. Islam?
Islam.
Act 6. Whereas all members must proclaim their nationality, and we are teaching our people their nationality and their divine creed, that they may know that they are part and a partial of this said government, and know that they are not Negroes, colored folks, black people, or Ethiopians. Because these names were given to slaveholders by slaveholders in 1779 and lasted until 1865 during the time of slavery. But this is a new era of time now, and all men now must proclaim their free national name to be recognized by the government in which they live, the nations of the earth. This is the reason why Allah, the great God of the universe, ordained Noble Ali, the prophet, to redeem his people from their sinful ways. The Moorish Americans are the descendants of the ancient Moabites who inhabited the northwestern and southwestern shores of Africa. Islam?
Islam.
Act 7. All members must promptly attend their meetings and become a part and a partial of all uplifting acts of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Members must pay their dues and keep in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. Husband, you must support your wife and children. Wife, you must obey your husband and take care of your children and look after the duties of your household. Sons and daughters must obey father and mother and be industrious and become a part of the uplifting of fallen humanity. All Moorish Americans must keep their hearts and minds pure with love and their bodies clean with water. This divine covenant is from your holy prophet, Noble Ali, through the guidance of his Father God Allah. Islam?
Islam.
Noble Ali, founder, Moorish American prayer, Allah, the Father of the universe, Father of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Allah is my protector, my guide, and my salvation by night and by day, through his holy prophet, Drew Ali. Amen.
Amen.
Moorish Science Temple of America, Home Office, Noble Drew Ali, 3140 Indiana Avenue, Chicago, Illinois, USA. Islam?
Islam.
Islam?
Islam.
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 You may be seated. I rise giving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala the highest of praise, highest of honors to his holy and divine prophet, Noble Ali. I extend those honors to the forerunner, the harbinger, the honorable Marcus Moshe Garvey, who did born and stir up the nations. I give honors to the Moorish American standard, the red flag with the green 5-pointed star representing the highest principles that are known to man, which are love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. I also acknowledge the United Mercantile Trading Banner, also known as the American flag. I give honors to Master Farag Muhammad. I give honors to the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Mr. Louis Farrakhan. I give honors to all Moorish Americans who strive to perpetuate this Moorish divine national movement by way of the Prophet's divine holy instructions and divine laws. I give honors to Temple Number 19, the Sheik staff, admin staff, and the mighty vanguards who keep the peace. I give honors to our guests. Welcome. We appreciate you all coming out tonight. And indeed, I give honors to the ills and bays and the groves, because when man honors man, he honors thy Father God Allah. Islam?
Islam.
Once again, all praises are due to Allah for having us here on this Sunday school session, so that we may continue to build on things that make us better citizens. Our Prophet Noble Ali tells us that from out of your Sunday school come the guidance of our nation. Islam?
Islam.
All right, so we do things a little bit differently from our Sunday school as opposed to our Holy Day meetings. This is an open forum. And the first thing that we do is we, as the Prophet instructed, is conform ourselves to the Quran questions, which is also called the 101s. You should have a copy of the 101s either in front of you or beside you. We have quite a few. If you don't have one, please share. These are your brothers and sisters. And the way that we recite our Quran questions, or also known as our 101s, is by way of call and response. I will ask a question, as in who made you, and we will all answer in unison, Allah, and we will continue on all the way down to question or key 101. And to make it interesting throughout these questions, I may, again, this is an open forum, I may ask your take or your draw on this specific question, and I'll add on. And we're going to do that as much as we can, so we can establish a better understanding of the doctrine that was left to us by our Prophet Noble Ali. Our Prophet Noble Ali states to us that masterminds trace themselves back, thus they know. Islam? Therefore, the purpose of this Sunday school is that we may be able to trace ourselves back, all the way back to our Creator, Allah, so we can understand the value of ourselves and the value of each other. Islam?
Islam.
All right. Do we have any questions? One more thing, this still is considered a meeting, so we ask that we conduct ourselves as such. If you do have a question or you have an add-on, we ask that you rise, place your feet at a 45-degree angle, 2 fingers closed on the right, 5 fingers open on the left, giving all praises due to Allah, and the highest of honors to our Prophet Noble Ali. After that, at one time, you do not have to rise and do the whole honors. After that, you can just rise and give your question. If any of you are guests and a little uncomfortable about using the words Allah for the time being, you're welcome to say the great God, because regardless of what you call him, he is the causeless cause and the rootless root from all things, from which all things are formed. Islam?
Islam.
Once again, please check your phones, make sure they're on silent and vibrate. This is a peaceful forum, so we're not looking to debate. We're only looking to share ideas and establish an understanding. Allah had granted to each and every one of us our own portion of knowledge. So even if we, do not agree on a particular perspective, the key is to establish an understanding between each other. Islam?
Islam.
All praises to Allah. And you again, to those of you all who are kind of new to this format, I'm going to use Allah. I'm going to use Allah a lot, of course, but I'm going to say Islam as well. And Islam is to be used interjectionally as a reply, call and response, or confirmation. Islam?
Islam.
Praise the due to Allah. So, without any further delay, we will confirm ourselves to the questionnaire. All right, we ready? Islam. Key 1, who made you?
Allah.
Key 2, who is Allah?
Allah is the Father of the universe.
Key 3, can we see him?
No.
Key 4, where is the nearest place we can meet him?
In the heart.
I want to stop right there for a moment because I want to drive home the importance of Allah being the Father of the universe, the author and creator of all things which are known and unknown. It is said by way of our Prophet Noble Ali that we cannot see him, but in the Quran of Mecca, the great Quran of Mecca, he says he is he is closer to you than your jugular vein. And we can see the creation of Allah all around us. We are not worshiping or giving the highest of praise to a spook God.
That's right.
We're giving honors to you, my brother, to you, my sister, to all the creations of Allah, from the highest of eagles to the smallest of worms. All are creations of Allah.
Islam.
It says when man honors man, as I said before, he honors thy Father, God Allah. And then we also know by way of our prophets' doctrination or instructions that when man does harm to man, he does harm to Allah. Islam? All right, so we see Allah all around us. He is no spook God. He is no deity that sits beyond the heavens on a high throne with a long beard, with a book that's counting down your sins versus your accolades. You know, he is the one that judges us, but we judge our own selves by our actions. Islam?
Islam.
Also, we have a representation of Allah when we deal with our chakras. All right, the heart chakra. So the heart chakra is the most calmest of the heart chakras. When you've activated your heart chakra, that means you're to the point where you're calm and where you're still. And it says in the Moorish Holy Quran that we can hear Allah through our still small voice, or through the still small voice. Islam? Key 5. Who is Noble Drew Ali?
He is Allah's prophet.
Key 6. What is a prophet?
A prophet is the power of Allah manifested in flesh.
Key 7. What is the duty of a prophet?
To save nations from the wrath of Allah.
Key 8. Who is the founder of the Moorish Science Temple of America?
Noble Drew Ali.
Key 9. What year was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
1913 AD.
Key 10. Where?
Newark, New Jersey.
Key 11. Where was Noble Drew Ali born?
In the state of North Carolina, 1886.
Key 12. What is his nationality?
Moorish American.
Key 13. What is your nationality?
Moorish American.
Key 14. Why are we Moorish Americans?
Because we are descendants of Morocco, born in America.
Key 15. For what purpose was the Moorish Science Temple of America founded?
For the uplifting of fallen humanity.
Key 16. How did the Prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans?
By teaching them to lead themselves.
Islam. The Moorish Science Temple of America is an institution, and the purpose of our institution is to be servants, friends and servants of humanity.
Islam.
Within the Moorish Science Temple of America, we foster and we advocate the philosophy of charity starts at home. Islam. So even though we are friends and servants of humanity, we have a special affinity to the brothers and sisters that are descendants of Africans and born in America. And our duty as Moorish Americans, as stated in our divine constitution and bylaws, is to teach our people their nationality and our divine creed. Our nationality being Moorish American and our divine creed being Islamism, which we will talk about later on in our questionnaire. Our Prophet Noble Drew Ali is a thought of Allah made manifest. And it also says in our questionnaire that the purpose of the Prophet is to save those from the wrath of Allah. It says that when love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, when love, truth, peace, and freedom are violated, justice must take its course. So, in other words, when there's a discourse in the world, in society, Allah sends down His thought made manifest to show people the way, to teach people the way. Islam?
Islam.
And inshallah, if the people are adherent to the words of the Prophet, to the messages of the Prophet, then they will be saved from the wrath of Allah. Islam?
Islam.
However, if they do not take heed to the words of the Prophet, if they do not take heed to the messengers of the Prophet, then they will suffer a wrath that is unknown to any other person except for that individual or group of individuals. Islam? All right? And the discord that we have as Africans being born in America is that we have lost our identity. We've had our identity stripped from us, part and self. We have been debased. We've been resorted to nothing more than an object, that chair that you're sitting in, being called black, being called chattel property. Islam?
Islam.
But our Prophet, which is a noble and divine prophet, he taught us the principles of civility. He taught us that we are more than what any person decides to give to us. That no one has the right to define who we are. We have the right as creators of Allah to define ourselves. and determine our own fate. Islam?
Islam.
Our prophet has shown us the way. And it is incumbent upon all Moorish American and those that are supportive of this Moorish divine and national movement and by way of Islamism to support us and to support all brothers and sisters that are descendants of Africans and born in America. Islam?
Islam.
And if I may, I want to touch on key 16 where it reads, how did the prophet begin to uplift the Moorish Americans, as well as the Africans that are born in America, by teaching them to be ourselves, by teaching them to be themselves.
That's right.
All right? We can no longer live within the paradigm of the European. Our prophet calls that European psychology.
That's right.
Islam?
Islam.
We can no longer be fooled and bamboozled and led astray by the principles of European psychology.
That's right.
We have our own thought process.
That's right.
That's why we study our forefathers and our foremothers, so we can know how we think.
Islam.
All right? As you can see above me, we have some of the prophets that we as Moorish Americans that we study. And there's nothing wrong with taking a piece or a part of each and every one of those prophets. From Jesus, from Muhammad, from Buddha and Confucius. But we have our own way of demonstrating those principles.
That's right.
We cannot demonstrate Buddhism the way that the people in Tibet and in China do it. We have to do it the way that we as Africans born in America do it, as Moorish Americans do it.
Yes, sir.
We cannot follow the path of the Christ the way that the Europeans do it.
Right.
We have to do it by way of our ancestors and how we represent it. Islam?
Islam.
You have the Q Chinese. They're practicing Muslims.
That's right.
But they still devote themselves to that ancient culture.
That's
and at the end of the day, they're still Chinese.
Islam.
Islam? So we have to adapt that same concept. Islam, we have to be ourselves.
That's right.
Because if we continue not to be ourselves, we will be subjected to someone else's definition of who we are.
Islam.
And that itself is slavery. Islam?
That's right. Islam.
Key 17. What is our religion?
Islamism.
Key 18. Is that the new or is that the old time religion?
Old time religion.
Now this is the time where I'm going to ask some participation from our audience. Why Islamism? Why is that the old time religion? Islam. That's all right, we're going to warm up. Islamism has been around since Allah created the first living being.
That's right. That's right.
Islamism is defined as man being in harmony with each and every creation of Allah. So it's from birth that man is taught or that is groomed to be at peace with not only himself, but those that are around him. Islam?
Islam.
And that is Islamism. That is the action of peace. Islam?
Islam.
Key 19. What kind of flag is the Moorish flag?
It's a
Red flag, round 5 points, green star in the center.
Key 20. What do the 5 points represent?
Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice.
Key 21. How old is our flag?
It is over 10,000 years old.
In some pieces of literature, it is over 10,000 years old, and in the other pieces of literature, it is over 50,000 years old.
Islam.
We have what we call a standard. Our ancient forefathers and our ancient foremothers, the flag, or in other words, the standard was called the vexilloid.
That's right.
And the vexilloid was a representation of our principles. So when we talk about this Moorish American standard right here, the red flag with the green 5-pointed star in the center, representing the highest principles that are known to man, which are love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. This is not the representation of the Moroccan flag.
That's right.
Our prophet Noble Drew Ali, at the time when Morocco was under the French protectorate in 1912, he was held this Moorish American flag.
That's right.
They adapted it from us. When we talk about this Moorish American flag, we're talking about the Moorish American standard. And the Moorish American standard has been around for over 50,000 years old. Islam?
Islam.
And it just so happened that this particular state that we're in, it is represented by this red flag with the green 5-pointed star in the center. Islam?
Islam.
From those of y'all that are just coming in, again, welcome. Thank you again for coming out. This is our Sunday school session. This is an open forum. And the first part of our Sunday school session is that we confirm ourselves to the questionnaire as our prophet has instructed us to do. And we go through our questionnaire by way of call and response. And as you can see, when I ask the question, I ask that you all give the proper response that is listed on here. And I'll go by moving forward and expounding on it rather. And I may ask a question from each and every one of you so we can add on, because we're all here to learn. Islam?
Islam.
Key 22, which is our holy day?
Friday.
Key 23, why?
Because Friday is the day in which man was formed in flesh, and it was on Friday when he was born out of flesh.
Islam. Key 24, who is Jesus?
He is the prophet of Allah.
Key 25, where was he born?
In Bethlehem, Judah, in the house of David.
Now, when we talk about the concept of Friday, well, let me ask you this. I want some more participation from the audience. We're going to warm up here. I won't have to start calling any names. I know a few of y'all in here.
So,
Why Friday? Out of any day, why is it that our prophet instructed us to worship Friday, to worship Allah and all of Allah's creation on a Friday? Because this dates back far beyond the Moorish Science Temple of America. This goes back far beyond our other prophet Muhammad alayhi salam. Why Friday? The concept of Friday, when we look at it from the Western perspective, that's Freya's Day, the quote unquote the consort of Odin. But when we do our research, when we study, we know that Freya is a derivative of Venus.
that's right.
And that Venus is a derivative of Ishtar. And that goes back to our ancient Moabite and Canaanite forefathers. And in other words, that represents the deity of love, that aspect of Allah,
Islam.
that feminine principle of creation. Islam?
Islam.
So when we talk about Friday, we're talking about the day when we represent the day that Allah created man out of the spirit of love. So that's what each and every one of you are. You are love made manifest.
Pizza.
So when we talk about Friday is our holy day, and we're talking about the reason why we worship Allah and we give the highest of praise to Allah on a Friday, on the day of love, because that was the day when love was made manifest.
Islam.
And that was the day when we go into the degree of Jesus, that he ascended unto Allah because his work was done as a prophet. He showed people the way of love.
Islam.
Islam? Is everyone with me?
Islam. Yes, sir.
Key 25. Where was he born?
In Bethlehem of Judah, in the house of David.
Key 26. Who were his mother and father?
Joseph and Mary.
Key 27. Will you give in brief the line genealogy through which Jesus came?
Some of the great fathers through which Jesus came are Abraham, Boaz, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, and Joseph are married.
That's wrong. And if anybody needs any other resources or notes, when we talk about the line of the genealogy of Jesus, you can go to, I'm going to write it down, Matthew 1:1. (1 through 17). And you can also go through Luke 3:23 chapter or verses 23 through 28. And that gives you the line or the descent by way of Joseph and by way of Mary. Islam? When we talk about where was he born, he was born in Bethlehem of Judah, in the house of David. Within that answer, we get an indication, or we can get a pretty educated guess on when Jesus was born. Because of all of y'all, as all of you know, he wasn't born on December 25th, correct? All right. But when we look at this word right here, when we look at Bethlehem, Bethlehem is the house of bread. And the house of bread, again, goes back to that concept of Virgo. So he was born in the house of Virgo. So he was born in the house of love. Islam? Of Judah in the house of David. And then when we look at this genealogy, this line from which Jesus came, these are foremothers and forefathers that represented that transition and that degree of redemption. From Abraham, Boaz by Ruth, Jesse, King David, Solomon, Hezekiah, all the way to Joseph by Mary. This was the bloodline through which Jesus came.
That's right.
These were the teachers that Jesus had learned from, whether it was in the flesh or by way of their spirit, learning these degrees of love. Islam? Key 28. Why did Allah send Jesus to this earth? Key 29. How long has that been?
About 2,000 years ago.
Key 30. What was the nationality of Ruth?
Ruth was a Moabite.
Key 31. What is the modern name for Moabites?
Moroccan.
Key 32. Where is the Moroccan Empire?
Northwest of Mexico.
Key 33. What is the modern name for Mexico?
Africa.
Now I want to stop right there. So when we talk about the degree of Ruth, who is familiar with the degree of Ruth? Brother, would you mind in brief giving your take on the degree of Ruth?
My vantage point, from my vantage point?
Yes, sir.
Well, Ruth, as you shared with us, is a Moabite. And she actually, according to the Eastern Star, she's one of the 5 stars, which actually, her character actually represents the character of the Christ and the Messiah. And we know that Ruth actually was, her husband passed away, and she traveled to Jerusalem with her mother-in-law, Naomi. And that's where she actually married Boaz, who was actually her husband. But I think that the history points to a prophecy. And the degree that we see it, that the Bible is 25% history and 75% prophecy. So we really see that Ruth and Boaz was a sign of a man to come and a relationship that would produce that man.
That's right.
So that's my degree of vantage point.
Islam. Anyone else? Sisters, on the degree of Ruth? Islam. When we talk about northwest of Mexico, that is the Moorish American terminology for Africa. We can get that concept, or we can get the derivative of that concept of a Mexum from a city in Morocco called Al-Maqsim. And that was the central state where a lot of the laws and jurisdictions were placed, set apart from the Moorish Empire, Islam. So that was the central area when we're talking about where the capital of the Moroccan Empire was held, Islam. Key 34, what is the title given to our ruler in Morocco? Key 35, where do we get the name Jesus? Key 36, what does the name Jesus mean?
Jesus means justice.
Key 37, did the angel give to the child that was called Jesus a holy name?
Yes, but it cannot be used by those who are slaves to sin.
Now, in regards to key 34, asking what is the title given to our ruler, again, we as Moorish Americans, we should begin to remove ourselves from this European paradigm of kings and queens. Our rulers during the time of the Moorish Empire, of the Islamic Empire, was Sultan. Islam? When we talk about where did we get the name from Jesus, we got the name Jesus from the East, because he was born from that area, and he came to the West. He taught in the West as well.
That's right.
What does the name Jesus mean?
Justice.
Jesus means justice. And we know that when we talking about the etymology of it, by way of our Hebrew doctrine, we know that Jesus means that Yahweh is Savior. But according to our Moorish American doctrine, that is still the representation of justice. That is still the representation of Allah made manifest. So when we talk about Jesus meaning justice, we're not looking to denounce the actual meaning of it. But again, we're looking to bring an understanding to those that were born on these shores, a better understanding. So they can have a full foundation, a way to begin to trace themselves back. Because again, when we think about it, once we were so-called, quote-unquote, emancipated, what direction did we have? Where could we point ourselves to establish ourselves? Yes, we had quite a few brothers and messengers that were in place all the way up to the prophet. But as a collective, where could we point to? So our prophet was giving us a direction. He was giving us a way so that we may be able to find ourselves and establish ourselves. Because every other nation that comes to these shores, they know who we are. They know who they are, pardon themselves. When you ask them who they are, they can say, well, I'm white, or I'm Chinese, or so on and so forth. But when you really get down to it and say, well, where are you from and how did you get there? They can break it all the way back to the creation itself. Right. So if they're able to do it, why is it that we, as Moorish American, as descendants of Africans born in America, how is it that we're not able to do that? We should not be able to trace our descent line just to the beginning of slavery. Islam?
Islam.
This is why we have our prophet, Noble Drew Ali. This is why we have the Moorish Divine and National Movement. Islam?
Islam.
And I know Key 37 may seem a little hubris, but it's important to understand that we, being keepers of the light, we have to preserve it. We as Moorish Americans, we are an institution. The Moorish Science Temple of America is an institution that has a sole purpose to uplift fallen humanity. And in order for us to uplift fallen humanity, we must be able to preserve our doctrine to make sure that it will not be tainted. And we have to be mindful of the people that receive this knowledge, right, so that they may be able to use it and not be malicious towards their actions. Islam?
Islam.
Key 38. What is an angel?
An angel is the God of Allah, manifested in human flesh.
Key 39. What are angels used for?
Carry messages to a far corner of the world and to all nations.
Key 40. What is our prophet to us?
He is an angel of Allah who is sent to bring us the everlasting gospel of Allah.
Key 41. What is the everlasting gospel?
It is a saving power that comes from Allah through our ancient fathers by His power.
Key 42. What is the covenant of the great God Allah?
Honor thy father and mother, that thy days may be long upon the earth, which the Lord thy God Allah hath given thee.
Islam, family. When we talk about this everlasting gospel, we're talking about a saving power.
Islam.
When we're talking about the concept of power, we're talking about a concentrated element. So when we look at the ants, when we look at the bee, when we look at the wind, when we look at the water, we're looking at a force here that is predicated on the concentration of the thing. So then within that, there's a message for us that we cannot move, we cannot strive, we cannot perpetuate our legacy We cannot be successful without the collective.
That's right.
We cannot do it individually.
Right.
We tried to do it before, and we suffered great for it, to little avail. So the key is that we have to establish this force. We have to establish this saving power.
Mm-hmm.
And that saving power, we all have it within us because it comes within our forefathers.
Islam.
When we look at the concept of DNA, we're not just talking about the physical attributes, we're talking about the mental and the psychological attributes. Islam. So we have that in our blood. We have that in our spirit. Islam.
Islam.
So that saving power is within us. Key 43. At what age did Jesus begin to teach?
At the age of 12.
Key 44. Where did he teach?
In India, Africa, and Europe.
Key 45. How long did he teach?
18 years.
Key 46. What did Jesus say will make you free?
Truth.
Key 47. What is truth?
Truth is hard.
Key 48. What is ought?
Hard is Allah.
Key 49. Can truth change?
Truth cannot change nor pass away.
When we talk about the age that Jesus began to teach, he says he taught at the age of 12. And within the Moorish American doctrine, we have a degree on the numbers of 12. We have a degree stating that the fact that the way that Jesus was able to teach because he had mastered the 12 steps, which we also know as the 12 signs of the zodiac. He mastered the degree of Aries. He was known obedience. Taurus, modesty. Gemini, gratitude. Cancer, charity. Leo, the degree of temperance. Virgo, prudence. Libra, justice. Scorpio, sincerity. Sagittarius, diligence. Capricorn, benevolence. Aquarius, science. And Pisces, religion. So it's said that once Jesus mastered those 12 steps, so those 12 signs of the zodiac, he found himself qualified to go and teach the gospel to others. Islam?
Islam.
And then it says, what did Jesus say can make you free? Truth.
Mm-hmm.
And we can expound upon that when we look at John chapter 8, verse 31 through 32. Because he said truth will set you free.
Islam.
And we see that in the Quran questions that truth is ought. And ought just means everything.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, if ought is everything, then what is Allah?
All.
It's everything. Islam. We also, well, key 50. What other names do we give to truth? Islam. Key 51. What do you have to say about the Holy Breath?
All we can say is very great, it is good, it was, it is, and evermore to be. Amen.
Key 52. What place on earth was the physical part of man formed?
In the Garden of Eden.
Key 53. Where is the Garden of Eden?
In the land of Canaan. In the city of Mecca.
Key 54. What is the modern name for the Garden of Eden?
Mecca.
Key 55. What is the name of the first physical man?
His name cannot be used only by executive rules of AC of the MSTA.
Key 56. What are the words AC of the MST of A?
Adaptation of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Third heaven.
Islam. So again, when you come into the Moorish Science Temple of America, we have 3 posts. Your first post is being a member. And it says, via our acts, or from our divine constitution and bylaws, the members are paid their dues and kept in line with all necessities of the Moorish Science Temple of America. Then you are entitled to the name of faithful. That is your second post. So that means when you have been able to perform all of your duties and when you have sacrificed a portion of your very self for the prophet and this movement, you are proving yourself to be faithful. And that means you know the things that this movement is true. Islam?
Islam.
And then you have a third post, which is becoming a sheik. And that is by way when you go into the adab chamber and you learn the things that are needed to teach to society and to teach your members and the faithful on how to be better citizens? Islam?
Islam.
Key 57, who were Adam and Eve?
Their mother and father was given them, Asiatic and Muslim.
Key 58, where did they go?
They went into Asia.
Key 59, what is the modern name given to their children?
Asiatic.
Key 60, who is guarding the holy city of Mecca to keep the unbelievers away?
Angels.
Key 61, what is the modern name for those angels?
Asiatic.
Key 62, what is the shade of their skin?
Olive.
When we talk about the term Asiatics, we're not just referring to that one body of mass known as Asia. We're drawing from a degree from the Kabbalah. In the Kabbalah, you have 4 worlds. First world, you have Atzulut, Beria, Yetzirah, and Asia, or Asia. And Absolute is the ether plane. And then you have Baria, which is the plane of creation. And then you have Yetzirah, which is the plane of formation. And then you have Asia, or Asia, which is the plane of action, or the plane of manifest. And being that if we are born on the plane of manifest, that makes us Asiatics. Islam? Asiatics are defined as olive tone, woolly to wavy hair. Islam? We are definitely the original man. Islam? Key 62, what is the shade of their skin?
Olive.
Key 63, are the Moorish American in relation to those angels?
Yes. We all have the same father.
Key 64, give the names that are given to the descendants of Adam and Eve.
Lucifer, Satan, devil, dragon, and beast.
Key 65, what is the devil sometimes called?
The lower self.
Key 66, how many cells are there?
2.
Key 67, name them.
The higher self and lower self.
Key 68, what people represent the higher self?
The angels who protect the holy city of heaven.
What people represent the lower self?
Those who cast out of the holy city and those who accept their teachings.
Key 70, what is the higher self?
The higher self is the mother of virtues and harmony of life. And brings justice, mercy, love, and right.
Key 71, can the higher self pass away?
No.
Key 72, why?
Because it is Allah and man.
Key 73, what does the lower self breed?
Hatred, slander, lewdness, murder, theft, and everything in harm.
Key 74, what did the higher self say to the lower self at one time when he met him? Key 75, what was the answer that the lower self gave to the higher self?
I am going to the earth, seeking whom I may devour.
Key 76, has he finished the task of devouring?
Yes.
Key 77, when was his time declared out?
When he nailed Jesus on the cross.
Key 78, what are the last words Jesus uttered?
It is finished.
Key 79, what did he have reference to?
He had reference to the end of Satan.
Did Jesus say he will return to conquer him?
Yes.
Key 81, what is the name of the person whom Jesus was first reincarnated?
Prophet Muhammad, the conqueror.
Key 82, was Satan to be bound then?
Satan was to be bound in part.
Key 83, when was the head of Satan taken off?
1453, Byzantine,
By whom?
by Muhammad.
So, just a quick question to throw out there. Why is it that Satan was to be bound in part? Why wasn't Satan completely destroyed? The question is, can Satan be completely destroyed? In the Moorish Science Temple of America, we have the concepts of the higher self and the lower self. The higher self, as explained, is the mother of all virtues and the harmonies of life. And the lower self is that which the higher self is. Oh, sorry, the lower self is that which is not the higher self.
No.
But the lower self also enables you to master wisdom. Because when you understand the lower self, you understand that all things around you are but an illusion.
Islam.
So the illusion that we came from slavery, that our ancestors, the beginning of Africans born in America came by way of slavery, that is an illusion.
Islam.
The fact that we are 3/5 human is an illusion.
That's right.
Islam.
The fact that we cannot overcome the obstacles that are in place, not only by an outside source, but by an internal force, that is an illusion.
Easy. Islam.
Are y'all with me?
Yes, sir.
The concept of the lower self is being able to master this realm,
That's right.
to be able to master Asia,
Islam.
the realm of action.
Mm-hmm.
And once you have mastered the realm of action, you have gotten control over your lower self.
Islam.
The prophet says that man is truth and falsehood strangely mixed.
That's right.
So as long as you're able to pinch yourself and you're able to feel it, you're on this carnal plane.
Islam.
Therefore, you have to master your lower self. You have to master the material.
Islam.
Islam?
Islam.
But if you do not master the lower self,
Mm-hmm.
and you have a tendency to breed hatred, lewdness, murder,
Come on.
slander,
Uh-huh.
death, and everything that harms.
Islam.
And we see that example out there in the cares of the world, in the dunya.
Islam.
Those who have not mastered their lower self, those who have not mastered the carnal plane.
Mm-hmm.
Islam?
Islam.
For a moment, all of y'all may not have it, but if you look on the cover of your Quran questions, you see that the prophet, our prophet, Noble Drew Ali, is coming out of the shores that are represented by the cares of the world, off of the waters represented by the cares of the world. And he's stepping foot on the shores of salvation.
Islam.
And he has his right foot on the shores of salvation and his left foot still in the cares of the world.
Mm-hmm.
So the question I have to ask you is, for one, he has humanity that is represented by the woman, represented by the womb.
Mm-hmm.
And she is unconscious. And our prophet is bringing humanity to the shores of salvation,
Islam.
not to keep them there,
Mm-hmm.
because they have to go back to the cares of the world and bring others back in, because as you can see, he's only brought one.
Islam.
And the barren land of salvation, the land of salvation is barren. So he has to bring more onto the shores of salvation.
That's right.
So the key is, can you swim? Have you been taught to swim? Because when we're going to go out to the cares of the world, the prophets say, when ye separate into the world, remember the relationship that bindeth you to love and unity.
Mm-hmm.
All right? So when you go out into the world, are you still going to have your fez and turban? Are you still going to have your fez and turban on?
Islam.
Your hijab on, and still act like that you're a Negro? That you're lower than the object, that you're a beast? Or are you going to carry yourself upright and civilized?
That's right.
Islam.
Islam? Because that's how you learn how to swim in the cares of the world.
Finish.
That's how the prophet was able to bring humanity from the cares of the world
Islam.
and breathe life into him, breathe in that holy breath. Islam?
Islam.
Praise is due to Allah. I digress. Oh yeah, key 87? No.
85.
Key 85. Name some of the marks that were put on the Moors of northwestern Mexico by the European nations in 1774.
Negro, black,
colored in Ethiopia.
And could you all answer key 86 for me?
Negro, a name given to a river in West Africa by Moors because it contained black water.
Islam. In certain doctrines, you have different draws. All is well. In other words, that when we talk about black water, we're talking about a thing that's stagnant, that's accumulated bacteria and other things that harm an individual. When you're in stagnant water, you're told not to swim in that stagnant water because it could be detrimental to your health. So all these things, all these concepts, when we talk about these elements, when you talk about the concept of black, we're not attacking the essence. We're not talking about the spiritual form of the universe. We're talking about, according to science, when you're speaking of something that's black, you're speaking of a void. You're talking about something that's the void and a part of a cycle. Some people will call it being frozen.
Right.
So if you're in that stagnant position in darkness, how are you to reveal the light? You must be taught the light.
That's right.
Islam?
So,
Key 87. What is meant by the word black?
yeah.
Key 88. What does the word colored mean? Key 89. What does the word Ethiopian mean? Key 90. Can a man be Negro, black, colored, or Ethiopian?
No.
Key 91. Why? Islam. Prophet said that we are not Negroes, colorful, or black people. And again, this is not taking a shot at the spiritual context of who we are as people of African descent.
No.
But we are speaking of the context of nationality, of citizenship, of having protection by your own people, for your own people.
That's right.
We're talking about not being named or not being called an object. Because we were called Negro. And as we know, Negro was a derivative of necro, which means death. Necropolis, necromancy, so on and so forth.
That's right.
So, when we're talking about that, and it's unfortunate that it's associated with the word black, or swarthy, or Blake, which is devoid, absent of something. So when we're saying that we're Negroes or that we're black people, what is it that we're actually saying? We're saying that we're devoid of something. We're devoid of quite a few things. What are some things is the Asiatic or the so-called black race is devoid of out here in the cares of the world? I'll start. We're devoid of unity.
Right.
I'll do another one. Proper education. Knowledge of self. What else are we devoid of?
Political power.
Political power.
Respect for the black woman.
Respect for the black woman. Our Prophet Noble Drew Ali says we should have a high appreciation for womanhood because she carries humanity. She is humanity. When a child is born, she is their first teacher.
It's not.
When you have a birthright or a solar return or a birthday, the first person you should be calling is your mother and say thank you.
That's right.
Islam? And it goes on by saying that a man cannot be made a Negro, color, black, or Ethiopian. Let me touch on color. Color means something that's stained, varnished, or dyed. We're not dyed. We were created this way. We were born with this melanin. We were born with this complexion. This was the original. Have you noticed that everything, even let's talk about chocolate. How many of us like chocolate? Okay. Have you noticed that, well what is white chocolate? What are they doing? What is the process of white chocolate? The process of white chocolate is when they strip all of the good things, if you will, in chocolate, and you're left with this albino that's fat. and they add a little bit of sugar to make it sweet. And they put cookies in it that's like your freckles. They call it cute. They say cookies and cream. And it's delicious sometimes. But they always paint it up to make it good for you, right? And in all actuality, it's not so good for you. Islam? So we cannot be colored. We cannot be an Ethiopian because Ethiopian wasn't given to us. That wasn't the original name of the people of Oxford. That wasn't the original name of the people of Abyssinia. And we all know that Ethiopia comes from the Greek term meaning burnt, black, or so on and so forth. But what our prophet is referring to, again, in the context, it is that was the point when the European began to separate Ethiopia from Africa. Because when you talk about Herodotus and Homer's Odyssey and so on and so forth, he doesn't mention the other parts of Africa. He just mentions that Ethiopia. And then the other part of that was considered the Dark Continent. That was the lands which were unknown, that were untouched, full of savages. So again, when we speak on the doctrine of the Moorish Science Temple of America, we're speaking on the context of the thing and the importance of what it means to not be referred to as a color, to define who you are, to define yourself. I guarantee, I challenge you, a homework assignment. See if you can find any nation or group of people that's named after a color. Let's do that. Islam? Let's continue on. We're almost done. Is everybody good? Islam. Then he says, man cannot be a Negro, black, or colored Ethiopian because he is made in the image and after the likeness of Father God Allah. Islam? Key 92, what title does Satan give himself? God. Key 93, will you define the meaning of the word white?
White means purity. Purity means God. God means the ruler of the land.
Key 94, to whom do we refer to at times as the great God? Allah. All right? So there's a difference between God and great God. When we talk about the term God, God comes from the German meaning idea, or to invoke. The prophet says man ideal is his God. So when man's ideals change, his God changes. All right? So what he's saying in these few questions that we're going over is, what title does Satan give himself? And Satan means adversary. Satan sometimes calls himself a God, the ideal.
Right.
So how many of our people have adapted to the ideal of an adversary? To the ideal of being against the progression of those Africans that are the descendants of Africans born in America, the Moorish Americans, the Asiatic. We have those people here. And then especially the European. The European, see, this is European psychology in the making again. He calls himself white. And then to oppose him calling himself white, he calls you what? That is everything, again, opposite of being God and ruler of the land. Who was the original ruler of the land? Raise your hand if you know that who was the original ruler of the land. Nobody knows who was the original ruler of the land. I'm the only person.
We were.
Islam. By way of Allah. Praise Him. Indeed. Key 95. We're almost done. A few more. Is the devil made in the image and the likeness of Allah?
No.
He is a shadow of the Lord's self and will pass away.
Key 96. Who made the devil?
Elohim.
Key 97. Who is Elohim?
Elohim is the seven created spirits that created everything that ever was, is, and ever will to be.
Key 98. What is Elohim sometimes called?
The seven eyes of Allah.
Key 99. How many days are in a circle?
7 days.
Key 100. How many days are in creation?
7 days.
Key 101. According to science, how many days are in a year?
7 days.
All praises are due to Allah. To answer the last three questions, our prophet has instructed us to or has given us the information that our ancestors have measured time by cycle ages. So even though, you know, it may be perceived as if time is linear, it is not. It is less. It is not that at all.
That's right.
We measure times in cycles. We can look at it in our day-to-day lives when we talk about quote unquote the days of the week, when we talk about the years. Each cycle, when we go into the next paradigm of the zodiac, in the age of Aquarius. Prior to that, what age were we in? Before that, Pisces. So now we're in the cycle of I know. And again, that's why we have some of our brothers and sisters and counterparts that are quite hubris and you know, think that they know everything. Because we are in that age. We are in the information age. As our prophet says, we are in the electrified age.
Right.
Islam? So if we don't know, we can just pull up our little computers and find out, and we'll know in a moment. Islam?
Islam.
So with that concludes my demonstration. Do we have any questions? Again, I welcome you all to come back again on next Sunday from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. And per this, we go through this every Sunday school session. And through every Sunday school session, we unfold a different thing and a different and unique thing about this Moorish American paradigm and the paradigm of the Asiatics, and the paradigm of the Africans, descendants of Africans that are born in America. Because it's important that we fully understand in so many perspectives and so many vantage points, what does it mean to be a Moorish American, to be an Asiatic? Islam?